The night was cold, and the city lights flickered like distant dreams. Ethan sat on the edge of his narrow bed, holding a letter of rejection from yet another job. No one believed in him anymore, not even his own reflection staring back through the cracked mirror. He had left home at 17, chasing a vision too fragile to explain. His parents called him foolish. Friends drifted away one by one. Still, something deep inside whispered that purpose wasn't given. It was built, piece by trembling piece. Days blurred into weeks. Ethan washed dishes at a small cafe, earning barely enough for rent. Every night, he scribbled ideas in a worn notebook. Inventions, poems, plans for a better life. They felt like seeds buried in dry soil, waiting for rain. One morning, while wiping tables, Ethan overheard a customer talking about an online contest for young innovators. The prize wasn't much, but the opportunity was priceless. His heart raced. Maybe this was the small crack in fate's closed door. He rushed home, opened his notebook, and flipped through countless sketches. One idea stood out: a portable water purifier made from recycled materials. It was simple, yet powerful. He believed it could change lives in villages without clean water. For nights on end, Ethan worked tirelessly. His tiny room became a workshop of dreams, wires, bottles, and blueprints scattered everywhere. Sometimes, hunger gnawed at him, but the thought of creating something meaningful kept him awake. When the day of submission came, he uploaded his project with trembling hands. There were thousands of entries, and he was just a dishwasher with no degree, no mentor, no support. But he had heartened sometimes. That was enough. Weeks passed without a reply. Each day that silence continued, doubt crept in. Maybe his idea wasn't good enough. Maybe he wasn't. Yet every time he saw a child drinking dirty water on the news, the fire inside reignited. One evening, his phone buzzed. The email subject read, "Congratulations, Ethan." He froze, unable to breathe. He opened it and read, his project was selected among the top 10 finalists. Tears welled up. After years of being unseen, someone finally noticed. The contest required him to present his idea live. Panic set in. Ethan had never spoken on stage before. The thought of facing experts terrified him, but he knew backing down meant losing more than just a competition. It meant losing his chance at redemption. He practiced every night in front of the mirror, pretending the stains on the wall were his audience. Words stumbled, voice cracked, but he kept going. Determination shaped him in silence while the world still ignored his rise. The day arrived. He stood backstage, clutching his notes. Around him were contestants with suits, mentors, and confidence. He had none of that. Just his belief that something small could still make a difference. When his name was called, the lights blinded him. The stage felt enormous, and for a moment, fear swallowed his voice. Then he remembered the faces of people suffering without clean water, and his fear turned into purpose. He spoke with raw emotion, not perfection. He shared his struggles, his failures, and the reason he never gave up. The audience went silent, not because of the prototype, but because of the truth behind it. After his presentation, there was no immediate applause, only a deep hush. Then, one by one, the crowd stood. The judges exchanged glances, some wiping tears. Ethan realized that impact wasn't measured in applause, but in hearts moved. He didn't win first place, but he won something greater: recognition. A non-profit organization approached him after the event, offering to fund his invention for real-world trials. His dream had finally taken its first breath. Ethan returned to his small room, the same cracked mirror watching him. Only this time the reflection smiled back, not in pride, but in disbelief that pain had birthed something beautiful. He called his parents that night. Silence filled the line, before his mother's voice trembled. "We're proud of you, son." For years, those words had been a fantasy. Now, they were real, heavy with love and regret. As he lay in bed, exhaustion wrapped around him, but so did peace. The journey was far from over, yet he finally saw the road ahead, long, uncertain, but illuminated by purpose. Outside, dawn crept across the skyline. Ethan whispered to himself, "From nothing, I've started something." And though he didn't know it yet, this small spark would one day ignite thousands of hearts around the world. Months passed, and Ethan's invention began to draw attention. Small communities tested his purifier, sending him letters filled with gratitude. Each message reminded him of that night he almost gave up. Now, his struggle had become someone else's hope. He traveled to remote villages where clean water was a dream. Children ran barefoot to greet him. Mothers cried as they tasted clear water for the first time. Ethan realized success wasn't measured by fame, it was in every smile his work created. But with recognition came pressure. Investors wanted profit, not purpose. They urged him to mass-produce cheaply, cutting corners. Ethan refused. He had built this from honesty and pain. He wouldn't trade that for money. Some sponsors withdrew. Funding dried up. The same loneliness that once haunted him returned, whispering that he wasn't strong enough. But this time, he wasn't alone. The people he helped began to speak for him. Villagers wrote testimonials. Videos spread online of Ethan installing purifiers himself. Donations poured in from strangers who believed in his mission. The movement was no longer about one man, it was about humanity rising together. One morning, he received a call from a global humanitarian organization. They wanted to collaborate, bringing his design to disaster zones worldwide. Ethan stood silent, tears forming. His once small idea had become a lifeline. He traveled to countries struck by floods and droughts, teaching locals to build purifiers from scrap materials. Every place he went, he met eyes that had once lost hope, now shining again. Purpose had found its true form, service. Despite the growth, Ethan stayed humble. He still wore the same old jacket, still kept the notebook that started it all. Whenever someone called him a hero, he smiled softly. "I'm just a man who didn't stop believing." A journalist once asked him, "What kept you going when no one believed in you?" Ethan paused, gazing at the horizon, "Because I realized waiting for someone to believe in you is a slow death. You must believe first." His story spread through documentaries and interviews. Students wrote essays about him, dreamers quoted his words, and young inventors began reaching out, seeking guidance. Ethan replied to each one, remembering how it felt to start alone. He started a foundation, training underprivileged youth in innovation and problem-solving. He saw reflections of his younger self in their eyes, hungry, uncertain, but burning with quiet fire. And for them, he became the mentor he never had. Years later, he was invited to speak at a global summit. The hall was vast, filled with world leaders, scientists, and dreamers. As he stood on stage, memories flooded back, the rejections, the fear, the cracked mirror, the cold nights. He began his speech not with data or graphs, but with a story. "I was once a boy no one believed in," he said softly. "But I learned something. Greatness doesn't come from applause. It's born in silence, in moments no one sees." The audience leaned in. His voice trembled, not from fear, but from gratitude. "If you feel unseen, unheard, remember, your story isn't over. The world only sees the light when darkness gives it reason to shine." A standing ovation followed. Cameras flashed, but Ethan's mind wandered to the cafe where it all began. To the notebook filled with shaky handwriting, to the version of himself who dared to dream when no one listened. After the event, a young girl approached him, clutching a sketchbook. "Sir," she said shyly, "I want to build something too, but no one thinks I can." Ethan smiled and handed her his old notebook. "Then you must start where I did, by believing." That night, alone in his hotel room, Ethan watched the city lights below. He realized the journey had come full circle. He no longer chased validation. He created it for others. His pain had turned into purpose, his purpose into legacy. He whispered a quiet prayer not for success, but for strength. That every person who heard his story would rise from their own ashes, just as he did. Because from nothing, anyone could build something extraordinary. The next morning, news outlets called him the man who started from zero. Ethan chuckled softly. If only they knew he didn't start from zero. He started from faith, from hunger, from one small act of trying again. Years later, his invention had reached millions. But more than that, his story had reached hearts. And somewhere, in a small cafe, another dreamer sat with a notebook, whispering to themselves the same words Ethan once did. "From nothing, I will begin."